promise of Allah. And as I learned the cruel lessons of life, Islam shone through as my guide.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is a series dealing with my conversion from missionary to Muslim. And this is episode 5, so if you've missed the other episodes, you need to go search for them because inshallah they will be beneficial to you. I'm sure you'll be able to find them on peacetv.com. So what has it been like since I reverted to Islam? In the previous episode we looked at how I converted and why I reverted, and I said that I was challenged to read the Quran, and I challenged you to read the Quran. And as I read the Quran, I found that the verses simply lead you to understanding who Allah actually is. And Surah Fatiha is such a beautiful chapter because what it does is it introduces the entire Quran to you. Now what was it like? Now that I've reverted, my brother and myself have reverted, and we leave the building of the Islamic Propagation Center where we did our reversion in February of 2002. Now we leave the building, what happens then? Well, when we left there, we were in for a big surprise because what happened is we started to talk to family members and friends immediately about it. Somehow, we didn't hold back. We immediately thought the best idea was to tell as many people as possible. So the first person that we went to tell was the lady from the pet shop that did all the There's Only One God preaching to us. And this woman who had this pet shop in South Africa, she was the woman who said to me every single time I went to the shop, there's only one God, there's only one God, there's only one God. And so what she was doing is she was actually teaching or preaching Tawheed. And so her aggravation and her telling me this over and over and over again might have aggravated me, and her aggravation got through to me. Eventually it got me to go search for truth. And so the first person that we went and told about our reversion to Islam was this woman, and her name was Zahira. And strangely enough, later found out that her name is Zahira Didat, related to Ahmed Didat. And so the very person who I debated against years ago, her relation eventually told me about Islam. And so I reverted to Islam at the Islamic Propagation Center. So she was a direct result of that. And so when I told her, she said, listen, there's going to be big trouble. You're going to have problems. People are going to complain about it. Take it slowly. Don't tell everyone all at once. So there were a number of people that reverted. 2 of my other friends reverted to Islam on the same day. So all in all, there were about 5 or 6 of us that reverted on the same day. So once we had told people, people said, well, this must be true. If you reverted, there must be some truth in it. However, there were other people that thought we had become the Antichrist and we were here to destroy humanity. Immediately, my parent, well, my mother, my father had passed away already. Were very upset and rejected me. My sister was so angry. She told me she never wants to speak to me again or see me again. And of course, that hasn't really changed up to this day. In fact, my sister has created a wonderful website. It's called baptistjihad.com. Which is very anti-Muslim, and it tells people that Muslims have no right to exist and other things like that. She's very upset about me being a Muslim. So there was a lot of hatred and disgust and things like that from the Christian community. But we have had greater results than we've had losses. I have had many opportunities to see many of my Christian friends embrace Islam. I've seen many of my friends embrace Islam over the years. And this is what will happen. You'll still have people coming to you and saying horrible things to you. I've been punched, I've been hit, I've been shot at, I've been shot, physically hit by a bullet. I've had people trying to poison me. I've been at a function where a poison was actually put into my food. And fortunately enough, I had a suspicion about it. So something just told me not to eat anymore. And I didn't eat anymore. I went to the doctor, had tests which were really expensive to do. Went on for about 3 weeks of medication, and it found out that there was actually some seed that was put in, a poison seed. So yes, I've had lots of opposition. People do not like me speaking out. I've had threats. I've had people telling me if I talk that terrible things will happen to me. These are things that you have to go through, and you know what? It's worth it at the end of the day. If somebody has to kill you for doing something like that, I mean, alhamdulillah, that's the silliness. But the 99.9% chance that if you revert to Islam, you'll not go through any of this. It's just some extreme people and extreme circumstances that happens, but it could happen. And if it does happen, you know, you should be proud of it because this is something that, you know, when you stand for the truth, people oppose it. Let's have a look at great characters in the history of mankind who have also embraced Islam. Look at Malcolm X. I mean, some people might not agree with Malcolm X, but I think he is a great man, and I think he is a great leader. I think he's a great example of what you will go through as a Muslim. Here's a man who stood for the truth. Yes, in the beginning, he fell for nonsense, and he went with the Nation of Islam, who were not following the true path and were basically no different to cult worshipping. And then he found the truth. when he went on Hajj. He came back from Hajj and his whole life was changed. And what happened when he started preaching the truth? When he stood up for truth, they gunned him down and shot him and killed him. So, I mean, we look at history and we see great men that did the same thing. Whenever great men stand up for truth, and not that I'm saying I'm a great man by any means, I don't want anyone to even remotely think I'm a great man. I'm just a servant of Allah. And I don't want anyone running after me or believing that somehow I'm a special person. I'm just the same as you. I have the same problems as you do. But if you are going to be a follower of Islam, don't expect it to be a bed of roses. But perhaps it is a bed of roses, because if you think what a bed of roses looks like, it's got lots of thorns in. So it's not going to be comfortable, and it's not going to be easy, and it's going to be tough. You know, one of the deceptions that we have in life is that Christian missionaries are actually trained to deceive you. And now you might be surprised that we are now moving from one topic to the next, but I need you to understand that there is a missionary deception going on. And you might be surprised to hear this statement. Maybe you're a Christian who's watching and you're thinking, oh no, this guy made so much sense, and to this point now he's talking about missionary deception. It is my duty to tell you what happens in the Christian circles, how Christians are trained to do work amongst Muslims, how we purposely trained up and then directed, and how we can confuse Muslims so that they become Christians. And one of the missionary deceptions is that they are taught to lie. Now the word lie is an intentional falsehood, it's an intentional deception, it's an intentional statement to deceive people. So when I'm saying deception, it means that there is a lie that is being told to you. Now, in the world, we know that there's deception. If I have a couple of copies of Time magazine in front of me, and I'm just going to hold up 3 copies of Time magazine so you can have a look at them. This is one of the copies of Time magazine, and you can see deliberately it has a Muslim on it, and it has a cross through him. This is another one, and it says, keeping an eye on terror. And then there's another one which says, we need to look back to reality, how we're going to deal with it, and also deals with Muslims. All these magazines, all these Time magazines, all show a depiction of Muslims as being something negative or something bad. CBS is a Christian broadcasting network, which is the news channel which many of us have in our homes, and we don't realize that it's actually controlled by the Christians. And what happens is it purposely depicts one-sided views of Muslims being terrorists. All these newspaper articles or all these magazine articles that you come across always depict Muslims in a bad way. Now, why is it that they do this? Why is there deception? Why is there purpose? And why are they not showing where Muslims give away $1 million towards child abuse? Why are they not highlighting the shelters that Muslims have for battered women? Why are they not showing the amount of work that has been done by Muslims in drug rehabilitation? You know, they're not showing these things because it doesn't sell the newspapers. And so what happens is we find the missionaries going into organizations, getting involved in the media, getting involved in the press, and pushing one angle. The idea of the missionary deception is to get into the Muslim community and divide them from each other, or divide their unity. And so what they do is they endeavor to make people look at Muslims in a bad way. And so what we see is we see Muslims are being mistreated and misrepresented in the media. Now, Jomo Kenyatta was a great leader in Africa. He said, and I'll summarize what he said, the missionaries came to our countries with the Bible and with prayer. And while we had our eyes closed in prayer, they stole our land and left us with the Bible. And this is exactly what missionaries do in many cases. They come in, and they come into the pretense that they're coming to help. And when you come there, you find that land has been taken away. You find that many things have been taken away while they've been trying to sell you the Bible. Now, one of the things that I read in the Washington Post, and what is interesting that during famine times, we often find that missionaries come by the thousands, and they come in and under the cloak of relief and famine relief and help and things like that. And when they come in, they don't bring so much physical relief, suppose it's spiritual relief. So they come in there and they come in with their Bibles and they come in with their literature, and they don't worry about the helping where people actually need help. You see, when we send 10 doctors over to do missionary work, dawah work from whatever country it is in the world, when there's a famine or when there's times of destitution or times of problem, we send 10 doctors. That's what you get. Now, Ahmed Didat once said when he was in Saudi Arabia, he said for every 100 people that are sent to do famine relief, only 10 of them are doctors. All the rest are missionaries that are coming to steal people, coming to steal people's minds, coming to steal people's thinking. And so they don't come with food relief, they don't come with famine packages, they come with the Bible, and they try to convince people to become Christians while they're at their weakest, while they're at their sickest. And so what we do as Muslims, when we go do dawah, when we go help people, we first help them with their physical needs. And then later, if they want to, we help them with their spiritual needs. But the first thing is we don't go there and try to take people, we don't try to steal people, we try to bring the truth. You know, many people, I ask them, why do you believe in Christianity? Why are you still a Christian when you know so much truth? They say to me, no, because of the sacrifice that Jesus did. I said, what sacrifice did he do? And they said, no, he came to steal their heart away. And I said, but he never came to steal your heart away, because Jesus never steals anything. Jesus came to teach people to follow the truth. So we do not believe in stealing anything. We're going to have a short break, and when we get back from the break, we're going to continue to talk about the missionary deception.
Walking.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are continuing in the second half about missionary deception. And as I said in the first part, is that missionary deception has a license to basically feed information back to secret agencies or agencies around the world. And especially according to the Washington Post, missionaries are allowed to work as double agents. They can be worked both as a missionary and agents of the government. And this is according to the Washington Post, so it's not my own words. We also said that many times that when missionaries are sent into areas, they go in there under the guise of helping people, but out of every 100, only 10 of them are doctors or relief workers. The rest are missionaries trying to steal people's hearts away. And like I said, people even believe that Jesus has come to steal their hearts away. And we've made it very clear that nowhere in the Bible does it say Jesus is a thief or that he tries to steal everything. He came to bring the truth, and the truth was to bring people back to the oneness of Allah. The Prophet Isa, peace be upon him, said La ilaha illallah many times in the New Testament. And so what we find is these missionary organizations, they purposely try to deceive people. And so what they do is they go into Muslim areas. Now, I spent a great deal of time in Malawi. Malawi is a country in Africa, and it's a beautiful country, one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to anywhere in the world. It's one of the countries that is least known, and if you ever have an opportunity to visit Malawi, you must go to Malawi. It's truly a remarkable country. But there were about 70% Muslim at one time. And within a very, very short period of time, it's gone down to less than 30%. And why is it? Because the missionaries have arrived in Malawi, and they're doing such big work there in Malawi. But what they do in Malawi with these missionaries is they build churches that look exactly like mosques. In fact, they're so much like mosques, they even give the azan. They call people to pray. They shout out to people to come to pray. They don't even have any pews or rows of chairs in the mosques and these churches. They have carpets. And they call people, and the only thing they change that's different is they leave the part of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam out, and they replace that with the name of Jesus. And what they do is they call people to come and pray in these churches that are built exactly like mosques. They look exactly like mosques. Even if you walk in, you would think you're in a mosque. And so what happens is people come there, and they pray, and they sit there, and they talk to people. Even the way they do the recitations from the Bible, they do it the same way as we do recitations from the Quran. The same tempo, the same classical way that we do it. They do it, but they do it with the Bible. And so this way they hope that they can deceive people, and this is a calculated deception, which means they sat down there and they thought, how can we deceive people like this? They even have little things that you put your Bible on so it's not on the ground, so you have the respects and everything. And they even have these books now written in Arabic so that the people can be deceived even further. So this is a purposely done thing, a deception that has been done deliberately to get people to think that they're in a mosque. And after they've been there for maybe an hour or 45 minutes, they suddenly realize, but this is not a mosque, this is a church. And so this is a purposely done deception. And what happens is they even have radio stations now where they don't call the person their priest or pastor on the radio station, the Christian radio station. They call him imam. And what they do is they use very similar terminologies. They use words like Bismillah, La ilaha illallah. They use terminologies like this when they're talking on their radio station. But these are Christian radio stations. And they even got so popular and they're so good that there's a lot of Muslims are actually switching onto these radio stations thinking they're listening to an Islamic radio station. And on satellite in South Africa, we have a television station. The whole station is a missionary station. From the beginning of the station to the end of the station, not once do they speak in English. Not once does anybody speak anything other than Arabic. The whole thing is done in Arabic. The complete television station, high quality, high definition television station, all in Arabic. And it's all done by missionaries. So the missionaries are very clever, very, very well put together, well thought through. Now, another one of the campaigns that Christian missionaries have done is they found a legal way of kidnapping children. So what they do is they go into areas where there's disasters or problems, where Muslims are either fighting against each other, or where there's division amongst Muslims, or perhaps where there's a famine or there's a tornado or a tsunami that is hit. And what happens, they take these children and they say, because there's so much dread and trouble and suffering, we need to take these children and leave them under protective custody. And so these children are taken out of their country, They're taken into Western Christian countries because the Christian missionaries arrived there, and they're brought up as Christians. Now, when the Muslims want to bring their children back to the country, they say, no, these children have converted to Christianity, and if they go back to those countries, they'll be murdered, because in Islam it says you can murder somebody who leaves Islam. So what they've done is they've kidnapped these children, they've taken them into custody in another country, and they've converted them to Christianity while they're there. And they know that they cannot send them back, and so what they've done, they use the words of the Quran, they twist it, and they use things against the Muslims so they can't get their own children back. Okay, so the Christian missionaries are active in every part of the world, and they are becoming more and more active. In certain parts of the world, they come just as teachers. They come in as people who look after your children. I know in many Muslim countries, they don't have churches. They're not allowed to do missionary activity. But what they do is they come in there and they look after your children. And they have storybooks for your children. And some of those storybooks, if you look through them, the storybooks will have stories about David and Goliath. And they have stories about Samson. And they'll have Jesus at the well and many other stories like that in these storybooks. And so they are still conveying the message of Christianity to your children, and you don't even know it. And you're under your own home, in your own household, in Islamic countries. This is happening. Now, the Christian missionaries, they have another thing that was planned, and this was around during the time that I was still a Christian. It's called the 1040 window. And the 1040 window is basically the latitude and longitude. It's 10 degrees latitude by 40 degrees longitude. And this is the north of the equator. And what they've done is they've targeted, this is the zone of the people that they want to do Christian activity around. And so these are the modern day crusaders. These are the people who are coming in, and they'll do anything. They'll cause division, they'll cause strife, they'll do anything. And they're almost like a Coca-Cola company. They come in there and they make distribution, everything, and they knock out all the other opposition, and they try to take over the business totally in the area. And so this 2040 window, what they're doing, they are aiming mostly on Central Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, Middle East, and most parts of Africa. And what they want to do is they want to bring Christianity to those areas, and they want to wipe out. And so what they've become, they've almost become like a growth. They're like weeds. When they get in there, they just take over, they choke up everything else that's around, and they have no room, they have no tolerance for anybody else, and they try and push them out. And so once they have seeded themselves in the area, it's very, very difficult to get them out, because they get politicians backing them, they get people backing them, they bring in with high finance, they come in with big money, and they root themselves in these areas. So the first time the Crusaders came, we saw these Crusaders, they came with the sword, and they came with suits of armor, and they came with big crosses emblazoned on top of them. Now this time they come with credit cards, and they come with checks, and they come with billion-dollar aid. And so the Crusaders are still exactly the same as they were before, and this time they stay longer because they're invited by the governments, and the governments say, well, as long as we're getting aid and as long as we're getting help, we'll keep these guys here. And so they are converting many Muslims to Christianity and calling them to a religion away from the religion that they know to be true. And so the Ummah is under attack, and they are purposely deceiving people. But alhamdulillah, Islam has continued to spread all over the world, and under amazing results, and millions of people throughout the world are coming to the knowledge of Islam. But they are being persecuted. Many of the reverts to Islam are being persecuted by the Christians. There are hit lists put out where people actually say that you can kill these people, they're no longer real Christians. Now, when Muslims say that Muslim cannot revert, either be put to death, this is nonsense, because this is what we see the Christians doing exactly the same thing. So they're the same thing. So we see that persecution is around. Many, many Christian brothers who reverted to Islam are having huge amounts of persecution. People are putting them on hit lists and telling them that they're not really, humans anymore. It would be better for them to die so that they cannot tell anybody else about Islam. Because many, many Christian people, when they become Muslims, they become very strong Muslims. So now the Christians are learning to fight back, and they are attacking us. So Christians are all over the world. They're doing these missionary activities, and they want you to follow their false teachings. Now, World Vision is one of the most well-known Christian organizations, and it describes themselves as an international partnership of Christians, Christian missionaries throughout the world, and they say they're international partnerships with other organizations. But what they do is they preach only the Christian gospel, and they're only preaching Christianity. And what they do is they say they are changing lives, and they've done documentaries. And one of their main aims is to bring Muslims into Christianity. They're not targeting anybody else. They're targeting exclusively Christians. And what we find is many of these organizations, like World Vision, for example, they get approximately $30 million of US aid from the government to do their work. So we can see who they are backed by. They can see who they're financed by. They are not financed by the local church. They're actually financed by the government. $30 million in United States aid. So the US government, United Nations government, and other agencies like this are actually financing these Christian organizations to do missionary work in your area. And you think they're just there to save your souls? They're there to do a lot more than save your souls. And so another organization is called Frontiers, another Muslim organization that does work amongst Muslims. And for about 30% of the missionaries that are sent out to Muslim countries to work undercover as missionaries. And more than that are being sent into your countries. About, they say for every 10 missionaries that has been trained up, 8 of them are being trained up to do work exclusively amongst Muslims. The missionary neighbor or the missionaries that you know down the road who seem like such sweet, nice people, they have covert reasons. They are there for another reason. They are there to convert you. They're there to bring you to Christianity. And they will not stop. They know exactly what they have done. Like I said, in Malawi, the percentage has gone from 66 practicing Muslims to 17% practicing Muslim in less than half a century. Christianity has spread like wildfire. In 1980, there were 200 million Christians in Africa. Now there are 390 million. So you can see the number has grown from very, very small percentage to almost 48% in Africa. So Christian missionaries are doing their work. They have written books and they're bringing more and more books out in Arabic. Their aim is to convert as many Muslims as possible to Christianity. So what can you do? How can you get involved? How can you prevent this from happening? Well, first of all, you need to speak out when you see these things happening. You need to start talking in your local community. If you're in a country that is majority Muslim, and it's basically seen as a Muslim state, you need to say, you can come into our country, but don't do it covertly. Don't pretend you're coming here as famine relief. Don't pretend you're coming here to help the sick, the poor, and the needy. Don't pretend you're coming to teach our children English lessons. If you're coming in to do missionary work, expose yourself for what you're doing from the beginning so that we know. We do the same thing when we go into Christian countries or predominantly Christian countries. We come in, we say we are dawah organizations. We're coming in to promote Islam. We're coming in here to propagate Islam. We don't pretend we're coming in there to do famine relief or missionary work or whatever. We say this is what we are and this is what we're going to do. When we go into hospitals, we say, listen, our intention is to do dawah. We are here to promote Islam. We do not lie about it. So what we're saying to the Christian is if you're going to come into our countries, if you're going to be seen in our organizations, if you're going to be seen in our states, if you're going to be seen in our places, tell us the truth, say this is what you want to do. I know, for example, that in India, many of the missionaries, they come to the hospitals and they come to the clinics and they come to doctors' waiting rooms and they say we want to talk about Christianity. That's fine. At least they're saying what they want to do from the beginning. They don't come and say that we want to give free glasses out or we want to give free medical care or whatever. We want to know the truth. We have no problem with people coming in and giving their side of what they believe to be true, but they must tell the truth from the beginning. And so it is like with us, with the Muslims. We do not like to lie about things. We do not deceive. We come out with the truth from the beginning. And so truth will stand clear from error. This is about all the time we have for this episode today. But inshallah, we will continue with the last part of the series where we'll talk about the missionary deception, and I'm going to give you some help and advice on how you can do dawah in your area. So from me, Areeb Islam, Assalamu alaikum.
I am a